So, in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, verse 18, Jesus is questioned about fasting. That is, refraining from eating for spiritual purposes or for mourning. But Jesus' response is very interesting, and it's often an overlooked response. In fact, it was a huge claim about himself. So, fasting. What was the big deal? Well, let's read, and then let's investigate. Okay, so we're going to start out reading Mark chapter 2, verses 18 through 22, and then we'll break it down. Now, John's disciples, that is John the Baptist, who we've already referenced earlier in these series of episodes, John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. And people came and said to him, that is Jesus, "Why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins." So we open up with a question. We're talking about fasting. So why does Jesus say that his disciples couldn't fast now, but would fast later? Like, Jesus is using a wedding metaphor. He's doing this to both respond to the question about why his disciples can't fast, and he's using this metaphor to teach and instruct about something much bigger, right? And he describes himself as the groom of the wedding. Now, a wedding metaphor is a really prominent metaphor in the Hebrew Bible, but it's always referenced as God as the groom and Israel as the bride. So let me give you just two quick examples. The first there's many that I could share with you, but the first comes from Exodus 19. And this is when God has just brought Israel up out of slavery in Egypt. They've crossed the Red Sea. He's brought them to Mount Sinai, and there he's about to establish a covenant with them. And so Moses goes up to God, and picking up in verse 3 of chapter 19, it says, "The Lord called out to him out of the mountain, saying, 'Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel.'" So it's almost like God, who has been courting Israel as a prospective groom might court a bride, and is now making a proposal. Like, I want you to be my treasured possession. And again, there's many other examples in the Hebrew Bible, but another really big one comes from Jeremiah many years after the Sinai circumstances and the Sinai covenant. And God is hearkening back to that time. This comes from Jeremiah chapter 2. "The word of the Lord came to me," Jeremiah, "saying, 'Go and proclaim in the hearing of Jerusalem, thus says the Lord, I remember the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness, in a land not sown.'" So again, many examples. These two just show how God was initially making a proposal to Israel as a prospective groom would to a bride, and also how he later refers to the people of Israel as his bride. So in Mark 2, verses 19, which I just want to read it again. Mark 2:19, it says, "Jesus said to them, 'Can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast.'" What's Jesus saying? I'm the groom, right? Like, this is a huge claim. Again, that's why I say it's often overlooked, because in the Hebrew Bible, this wedding metaphor is used, and God is always referred to as the groom. Jesus is now saying, I'm the groom. And his coming is like this great wedding celebration being set in motion. Like, we think about Jesus coming, his first coming, and then his second coming. So his first coming is almost like a bachelor party, or like a bridesmaid's weekend or whatever, right? It's a party. It's water to wine. It's bread for everyone. It's healings. It's a celebration. He's kicking off the wedding celebration. But in Mark 2, verse 20, Jesus says the time hasn't come yet. Let me read it again. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. Jesus is saying the wedding celebration has started, but it's not quite time yet. I'm going away for a time, and then they will fast. But Jesus is responding to their question with this new analogy that is really confusing to a lot of people, and I want to try to explain it to you really well. Let me read Mark 2, 21 through 22, just the last two verses. He's trying to explain. He says, listen, no one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins. Again, this can seem really confusing, but what Jesus is saying is basically the old form of fasting. Okay, the purpose of John's disciples fasting and the purpose of the Pharisees fasting was for spiritual purposes and for mourning, right? But this, Jesus is saying, is not why his followers will fast. They're not fasting because of mourning. They're fasting because of longing. They are longing for the groom to return, longing for the wedding between God and his people to truly commence. And one day, Jesus will return a second time, and there will be a great wedding celebration. The prophets of the Hebrew Bible attested to it. The writers of the New Testament attested to it. I mean, there is going to be a great wedding celebration. And all people have been invited. You have been invited. But only those who are dressed and ready for the wedding, that is, they are righteous and able to stand before God, will be able to enter in. Jesus makes this clear in other places. So I just want to encourage you to accept Jesus and prepare for that great wedding, that he will take the blame for all of your sin, and he will give you all of his perfection. He will give you clean robes to wear for that great wedding. I know several of you are you're contemplating, this is a big decision, to name Jesus as your king and allow him to direct you for the rest of your life. It is a really big decision, and I really want to help you with that. If you think you're ready, or if you just want to talk about it, you can go to investigatejesus.com, click on the tab that says Make a Decision. We'll set up a short little call and talk through it a little bit. I'd really love to help you make an informed decision about Jesus. And we will continue on in this discussion of Mark, and when the next episode is available, you can find it right there.